Hello everyone, how are you today? Actually, last couple of week I try to engage with our audience with different kind of strategy, especially economic strategy. At present, we have a lot of challenges, especially economic challenges. Because COVID, how we try to overcome from the COVID situations with different kind of strategy, which is very new for our economy, which is very new for all of our countries. In that situations, actually, we have to restructure our economy. We have to involve with lot of technological aspects. We have to be very much careful about our strategy. We have to be very much effective for the present conditions. In that particular situation, actually, we need two specific things. Number one, we need a specific strategy, which strategy must need to be relevant of the present condition. We need a strategy which is must need to be effective. On the other hand, policy is very important. So because example, a government has to take more control over economy. Example, we have a lot of unemployment issues, we have money inflation issues, we have different kind of challenge. In that situations, everybody has to be contribute for the economy, even though not only from the government, actually from the local community, from the root level to the top level, everywhere we need to be very much focused, and we need to be very much effective of our particular points. So first thing first, we today we gonna discuss about the monetary policy. So what will I learn from this topic? How monetary policy affect the economy through the money markets, and what are the difference between Keynesian and monetarist policies? So in that particular situation, we need to understand what is the transactions demand for money, the amount of money needed to cover the needs to buy the goods and services they use of an individual, firm, or nations. What is the precautionary demand for money? Is the art of holding money for use in a contingency situation. So in that situations, actually, how we holding money, this is very important. As received, and the payment cannot be perfect foreseen. People hold money to minimize the potential loss arising from a contingency. What is the speculative demand for money? The money people hold to take advance of the expected futures change in price of bond, stock, and other non-money asset. In the Kansas economy, a need for money for investment purpose. So how does a change in interest rate affect speculative demand? In Kian's theory, he argued that demand for money is a choice between holding cash and buying bond, as in following situations. Number one, if interest rates are low, then people will tend to expect rising interest rate, and therefore a fall in the price of bond. In this case, demand for holding wealth in the form of money will be higher. If interest rates are high and people expect interest rates to fall, then there is likely to be greater demand for buying bonds and less demand for holding money. If interest rates fall, then the price of bond will fall. How do interest rate affect the demand for money? There is an inverse relationship between the quality of money demand and the interest rate. Increase the quality of the money demand, decrease in the interest rate. Decrease in the quality of money demand, increase in the interest rate. So in that particular situation, if we observe decrease in the interest rate, if we decrease the interest rate, what will happen? Increase in the quantity of money demand. On the other hand, if we increase the interest rate, decrease in the quantity of money demands. So this is ultimately one of the economic aspects. In the demand for money curve, there is a two things. One is x-axis and another one is y-axis. In the x-axis, there is a quantity of money demand, let's say $500 billion, $1,000 billion and 1,050 $1,500 billion, and this is $2,000 billion. On the other hand, this is interest rate, is a percent. So it may be 4%, 8%. This is the things. And this one is MD, money demand. So if our interest rate is 4, then a quantity of money demand is uh, 1,500. If our increase the interest rate and interest rate is 8, then our quantity of money demand will be 1,000. So this is the things. If interest rate is increase, quantity of money demand will be decrease. What determine interest rate in the money market? The demand and supply of the money in the money market determine the equilibrium interest rate. What determine interest rate in the money market? The demand and the supply of the money in the money market determine the equilibrium interest rate. Why do bond price increase as interest rate fall? Above the equilibrium interest rate, people hold more money than they wish, and they use their increase excess money to buy bond. This increase in demand for bond does drive bond price up, which lower the interest rate. So in that situation, we have to understand, as an example, if interest rate decline, bond price will rise. On the other hand, that's because more people will want to buy bond that are already on the market, because the coupon rate will be higher than on similar bonds about to be issued, which will be influenced by the current interest rate. On the other hand, if you have a bond with a coupon rate is 3% and the cash rate falls from 3% to 2%, for example, then you and other investor might wish to hold on to the bond as the rate of interest has improved on a relative basis. A rise in demand will push the market price of the bond higher, and the bond holders might be able to sell their bonds for a price higher than their face value of $100. So excess money supplies create people buy bonds, and if we create the people buy bonds, then the bond price increase and the increase interest rate fall. Why do bond price fall as interest rate increase? Below the equilibrium interest rate, people hold less money than they wish, and they acquire more money by selling bond. This increase in supply of bond for sale does drive bond price down and increase the interest rate. For example, if you have a bond with a coupon of 3% and the cash rate increase from 3% to 2%, 4%, for example, the coupon rate on the bond will seems less attract to investors, so they will be willing to pay for less for it. So in that particular situation, we have to understand the bond markets and how we can sell bond and how we can create money. This is also important. On the other hand, the market price of long-term bond may be more volatile than shorter term bonds, because changes to the relative rate of return would have a bigger impact over a longer period of time. A lower price, however, would improve the current yield for the prospective investor, because if they can buy the bond for a discount, their overall return will be higher. So excess money demand will create people sell bonds, and it creates bond price fall and the interest rate increase. So in that particular situations, if we know the quantity of the money and interest rate, the quantity of the money, there is a surplus of $250 billion. If interest rate is 12, in that situations, we can find that there is a $250 billion surplus. It's a quantity of money. On the same hand, in the if interest rate is 8, this is the equilibrium point. And if interest rate is 4, the shortage of $500 billion. So if we set up the interest rate is 8, then we can create a like a winning situations, and we can utilize the maximum uses. How can the Fed influence the equilibrium interest rate? It can increase or decrease the supply of money. Increase in money supply create money surplus and the money buy bonds. Then it's decrease in the interest rate. On the other hand, decrease in money supply creates money shortage and people sell bonds. On the other hand, decrease increase in interest rate. So in that particular situation, decrease in the money supply, quantity of money in interest rate. So in that situations, there is a ms1 equal and ms2, and in that situation, if our interest rate is 12, uh, in that situations, this is okay. On the other hand, if interest rate is 8, there is a 500 billion dollar. So this is the impact. This is actually impact of actually the money supplies in the market. On the other hand, the previous we discuss about the Keynesian monetary policy transmission mechanism. In the Keynesian monetary policy transmission mechanism, we know in the Keynesian model, what do changes in the money supply affect? Interest rate, which is affect investment spending aggregate demand and real GDP and employment and price. So if we see the circle, change in interest rate create change in investment, then it push change in the aggregate demand curve, then it creates change in price, real GDP and employment, and this is the way of change in the money supply. So it's depend if we always change the money supply, and ultimately we get as a result change in interest rate, then we get as a change in investment, then we get as a result change in aggregate demand curve. On the other hand, we can create the change in the price, real GDP and employment. So in the Keynesian model, what do change in the monetary supply affect? Interest rate, which to turn affect investment spending, aggregate demand, and the real GDP, employment, and price. So this is another charts, and in that situations we're going to discuss expansion monetary policy and money markets. In that situation, there is a two things. One is ms1 and another is ms2. In that situation, there is a quantity of money. So 1000 equals to, if our GDP is 8, in that situations our quantity of money will be 1500 billion dollar. It will be new interest rate, and if our interest rate is 12%, in this situation ms will be 100,000. So this is actually the surplus if we decrease our interest rate. So ultimately this is the investment demand curve. So if we saw this investment demand curve, investment demand curve, if we see this investment demand curve, in the investment demand curve we said this is investment and this is interest rate. The investment demand curve, this is actually this is $800 billion, this is 850 billion dollars. This is 12% of the 12% of the interest rate, and if it decrease 4% and 8% of the GDP, then this is the things A to B, and this is the ultimately the investments of the thing. So when will business make an investment? This is very important things, that when actually we go for the investments and when we create the investment for the markets. You see, when will business make an investment? When the investment project expected rate of return equals or they exceed the interest rate. So in that situations, let's say it's a excess exhibitions in the product markets. So it's a real GDP, let's say 13s, and this is the price level. Let's say real GDP in the 213s. This is equilibrium, is a demand, and this is supply. So in the demand curve, actually when our GDP is $13 billion, that time this is interact in this place, 210 dollars. On the same by CPIs, price level increased 215. In that situation, actually E2 increase, and this is actually the surplus. This is the whole things actually, the surplus, and ultimately this is E2, and at that time our GDP grow for 14%. And in that situation, what will happen when our GDP grow? Our full employment also increase. So the monetarist money the monetarist policy transmission mechanism. So this is what is the monetarism theory, that change in money supply directly determine changes in price, real GDP, and employment. Let's say change in monetary policy. When we change the monetary policy, that time we can change in the money supply. When we can change the money supply, that time we change in the aggregate demands. When we change the aggregate demands, that time we change in price, real GDP, and employment. So this is one of the interesting things for our GDP, like GDP actually. GDP actually create a lot of interesting things. Like, what is the equation of exchange? In accounting, identify that state the money supply times the velocity of money equals total spending. So PQs equals to, it's create MV equals to PQs. What is the velocity of money? The average number of time per year a dollar of the money supply is spending on final goods and services, or it is the number of time that money move from one entity to another. So what is the quantity theory of money? According to the quantity theory of money, if the amount of money in an economy doubles, price level will also be doubles. This means that the consumer will pay twice as much for the same amount of goods and services. This increase in price level will eventually result in a rising inflation level. Inflation is a measure of the rate of rising price of goods and the service in an economy. So this is the things: money, velocity, price, quantity. So MB equals to PQ. M equals to money, V equals to VV, money multiplied by velocity, and pra equals to price and quantity. So this is the ultimately the main important things for our economy. So when we have money, and money has velocity, and the same times price and quantity, it creates the real things for our society. Thank you for watching for the today's sessions. Abayaz Mustain, Hosneara Ferdos, Araf Meheraz. Thank you for important contributions. And there is another things of what factor does investment receive demands. So look, investment is very important for all of the economy. Let's see. At present conditions, like example, there are a lot of money inflations. GDP goes down. If one or five companies come to the economy and they do a lot of investments and they do interesting things in a professional way, let's say they create a proper branding, they create proper employment, they create proper like demand for the markets. That time you see that if our employment create, company create very good profit, we create more employment opportunities. These employment opportunities actually go for the next levels, like our GDP also increase. So basically, like example, if any of the particular country in the macro initiative want the investment, they have to change many things. Not only that, if we have a cheap labor and the cheap land, people goes there. Most things is that you need a very good infrastructures. That if you have a very good infrastructures, as well as if you have a very good human resources, which is important for the manufacturing industry, which is important for their industry, then it will be very effective. And another most important thing is that policy, as well as transparency. If government and the system do not has lot of corruptions and these things, only it has proper policy and these things, that times become more effective, and investors want to invest on the economy. So for that particular situations, we have to understand that for creating more investment, we need to create a effective market strategy, as well as we need a proper human resources. We need like proper area or land how they can invest. And most important thing is that if our government has proper transparency, as well as they do not have enough system error, then any of the foreign companies, they can go and they can invest in the country. And if they can invest in the country, then it can create a good demand in the society. Thank you. Thank you, Mohammad Shohel Rada, for your nice discussions. But I request everyone that economy is a very important things for everyone. Economy is a very effective things for everyone. If you can focus on the investments, if you can focus on the real things, then your economy and all of your activities will be effective. So I request all of the people, try to understand the real macroeconomics policy and the micro initiative. If you can understand the macro and micro initiative, that you then you can implement the strategy. Mama Soel Rana, what could be the regulators for GDP growth in developing countries in the futures? This is very difficult question, but one point is very clear. You have to utilize your human resources, especially developing nations. Example, Bangladesh, it do not have, example, enough natural resources. So what they have lot of human resources, but they have to convert this human to the resources. If they can convert to the human resources, as well as they can contribute in the economy, like example, more if we can create a more effective investment strategy, more effective monetary in the strategy, or more effective way that how people can go there, or the different multinational company can go there and they can invest. If we can create this environment, that time actually, like we can create more employment opportunity. So when we create more employment opportunities, government also be benefited. Government can get corporate tax, government can get employment tax, government can get lot of investment facilities and other things. So if we can create more employment opportunity, then it's create impact on the GDP. Then our GDP and this kind of things is growing very well. So most important thing is that educations. We need to train our human resources in a professional way. We need to train our people in a perfect way. If we can train our human resources in a professional way, in a perfect way, then we can gain some sort of result. So this is ultimately the things we are discussing, that when we can create money and velocity, this is equals to price and quantity. So if we can create a genuine impact investments, and it can create lot of uh, like business opportunity, investment opportunity, strategic opportunity. By this way, we can develop our economy in a professional way. So this is actually very good time that how we can engage with different big corporations, and how we can involve with their economical activities. If we can involve with their economical activities, then we can create more employment. And if we can create more employment, our GDP growth and everything definitely grows. On the other hand, most important thing is that not only the GDP, we have to focus on gross national productions. It's a GNP. So gross national production also important. So that's why I request everyone that try to focus something, create something, develop some things which is relevant for your economy. Try to make business in a professional way, develop the product and sell it. If you can sell your product in a good way, then you can ultimately develop your economy. To what extent, thank you Hosneara, to what extent can the technological sector play a role in the increasing employment? This is very good questions. Actually, technology is very important things. Like if you have the technology and you have the enough human resources, they can involve with the technology, because innovations and technology working together. So when you have enough human resources, the human resources integrated with the technology, so when the human resources integrated with the technology, they can create something, they can create more employments, we can develop more employment from our human resources. So if we can create more employment for our human resources, then we can it can contribute for the economy. So this is ultimately the way of changing the strategy, so we can focus on that particular point. But definitely this is very good question. So thank you Mohammed Shohel Rana and his Hosne Arafeddos for your good questions. So yes, technology can play very good roles, investment can play very good roles, strategic alignments and many more things can create more effective way. So this is the way we can add some values, and definitely we have to create a very good policy for our economy. We have to be very careful about economy. We have to be very effective for our economy. If we can careful and effective for our economy, if we can make a meaningful contribution for our economy, that time we can change the economic demands, and that time we can change the ultimately the strategy for the economy. So this is not only the government things. Government has to monitor the economy in a professional way, they have to create better policy. On the other hand, the private corporations and the non-governmental organization, they help to implement these things. Local people play their roles, and local people has to integrate it in with the economy. By this way we can grow our economy in a professional way. But definitely this is very tough time for everyone. We have to be very careful about the present situation. Thank you. This is actually very good questions. So if you have any questions, you can communicate with me. And thank you for everyone for good questions, support. Mohammad Sohel Rana, Hosne Arafirdos, Araf Mehraz, Abiyaz Mustain, for your good question and good support. Hopefully, the next day we can come up with the new effective strategy. Thank you, everyone.